What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering the NFL, but we also dropped a weekend one yesterday, previewing all the week one matchups one last time and the games that happened Thursday night between the Eagles, Cowboys, and Chiefs Chargers, just reacting to those. Two great games that got us started. And then yesterday, a lot of football. So if you're a football fan, make sure to like and subscribe because we're going to be covering the NFL all season. And boy, did it feel great having week one back, NFL Sunday Ticket, NFL Red Zone, even though there are commercials now, which is kind of annoying. But still, for me, spent 10 hours, however long it is, 1 p.m. or even 12 p.m., started watching the preview show with Kurt Warner, Steve Mariucci, and the guys. Do a great job up until the final game, which we'll probably talk about that first. But man, what an NFL Sunday. Comment below if your favorite NFL team won, and what is your favorite NFL team. But with that being said, I think there's no other place to start than what was the Bills versus Ravens game. I mean, boy, I picked the Ravens, and for 99% of the game, I was looking good, and I was happy with my pick. I thought Baltimore, and they talked about during the game, Baltimore was going to be looking for revenge. They were coming in angry, and they were. And they had that nice cocky demeanor, getting into it with the fans. Lamar even shoving a fan that was pushing him, and I believe it was Zay Flowers or D-Hop after a touchdown. So the Ravens came in pissed off. And what did I think they were going to do? Establish the run. And Derrick Henry had a great game, 170-plus yards, cooked the Bills, couple touchdowns, and was just making big impact and, pretty much secured my fantasy football dub unless DeAndre Swift has a 50-plus point game and Justin Jefferson gets no points. I'm looking good, but shout out Derrick Henry for that. But, man, the Ravens offense, unstoppable. But the Bills with Josh Allen, they were hanging around because of Josh Allen. He was making superhero plays. They had the opening drive touchdown, and then they got a little conservative with Joe Brady. It was that second drive where they just ran the ball 3 straight times. And I've seen other YouTubers touch on it. You got to let Josh Allen be able to be himself and at least give him one chance per drive. And when you don't do that, that's when you can be in trouble because every possession counts, especially with these two teams and how dynamic both offenses can be. But, I mean, for the most part, the Ravens up late 40-20. They're just running the ball down their throats. And then Buffalo gets a touchdown off a great tip play. And, Keon Coleman had a great game. Second-year guy that I'm looking forward to breaking out and could be the key to the Bills, getting over the hump. Had 100-plus yards and keep them alive on a 4th and goal. And then Derrick Henry, despite how great of a game he has, Ed Oliver was probably the only one on defense that showed up. And he made the game-changing play, forced fumble. Bills get the ball at like the Baltimore 30. They score real quick, don't get the 2-point conversion, but then the defense makes a stop, and then we know what Josh Allen's going to do with the game on the line. He's going to come through, and they kick a game-winning field goal. But just a great game overall. I mean, both offenses super dynamic. And the Ravens are my Super Bowl team to win it all. I said that before the season. And despite this loss, I really don't feel bad about it. I think if anything, if what was proven last night is Josh Allen is arguably the best quarterback in the league right now and probably is the best quarterback. But Baltimore, Lamar can match him. And I just think they have the better team overall. I think their defense is a little bit better, especially in the secondary. And they can get after Josh Allen a little bit with Matabike and the guys up front. But so can Buffalo. But I think the secondary is what separates it and makes the Ravens, the best one with guys like Kyle Hamilton back there and Nate Wiggins. And then the offense, both offensive lines are really solid, but, Lamar and Derrick Henry are just an amazing 1-2 punch. You have Zay Flowers who, once they tried to contain Derrick Henry more in the second half, he started to break out. Rashad Bateman, guys like Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely who didn't play in this one. I just think Baltimore's the better roster. So if these two teams were to match up again, it really comes down to, I think, who has the ball last. But the Ravens, the one thing that's cost them in these games with the Bills is they have more turnovers. And for 95% of the game, they were playing turnover free. And then just that slip up in the last second, despite how great Derrick Henry was, that can change the game right there. And Buffalo's just proven that they can be the more disciplined team when it matters most. So I don't expect this to be the last matchup. I think these two teams will match up in the AFC Championship game. But it's stuff like this that hurts because the Ravens could have, won this game, have the edge over Baltimore for home field, but now it's Buffalo that has the edge in home field, and Orchard Park is so tough to play in. Those fans get rowdy. But still, overall, just enough can't be said about these two quarterbacks. Lamar making plays with his legs, making just some great throws. There was one scramble where he backed up 30 yards, looked like he's taking a sack, avoids Joey Bosa, and just runs for a first down. Josh Allen really settled into this game strong, and a healthy Dalton Kincaid can't help elevate this Bills offense. James Cook was efficient, and Keon Coleman could be the breakout guy. And then again, a guy like Josh Palmer from the Chargers had a couple nice plays, and Khalil Shakir is always consistent. So this Bill team is going to be what they were last year, very high octane offense. The defense will be able, I think, to settle in against Sean McDermott. They are playing the Baltimore Ravens, who, like I said, with Lamar and Derrick Henry, the best backfield in NFL history. It's going to be tough to slow down because Derrick Henry is just bullying them out there. And when you have to stack the box, obviously, Flowers, Mark Andrews, they're too good at pass catchers to not take advantage. So shout out these two teams providing us with arguably game of the year in week one. I'm not disappointed in my Ravens pick. Obviously, it stinks, for my pool league. Got to win some money. I think my week, though, was pretty bad regardless. Overall, we'll go through the games, each game, recapping each one and, who I picked. But overall, just kind of recapping the games as a whole. In this game, probably is a game of the year already. I don't see a game that can top this, and that's why we had to start off with it because, boy, it was a lot of fun. But with that being said, we had to start off with the game of the year, just two of the best teams in the league, the two AFC favorites, I think, after the Chiefs loss. And now we'll get into the 1 o'clock games. And, just give a quick recap. I tried to watch a majority of it with the 4 screen, just catch every game, snippets of it. Apologies if I do miss part of it or, some analysis, but I'll try my best. But with that being said, Cardinals versus Saints. I'm high on the Cardinals. Anyone who knows, I picked them to win the NFC West, where I think the division was up 50-50 for grabs. And they were also my lock of the week. But the Saints hung around, kept us close. And maybe it's just a little bit of, week one, still getting into it. I saw Kyler was sick before the game. So that wasn't great. And maybe that played a little bit of a role into it. But the Cardinals just looked sluggish on offense. I think the one good thing was Marvin Harrison was able to get going, and Kyler could still make some plays with his legs, but maybe he had a little, less juice in him just because of sickness. But overall, the Cardinals just did enough to squeak by in this one. Spencer Rattler almost came up with a great game-tying drive, and maybe they go for 2 to win it. Maybe the Saints team can be sneaky more competitive. The defense was scrappy, flying around and, just making some plays. And Spencer Rattler, Kamara, Chris Olave, they can be competent at some points. I do like Spencer Rattler as a quarterback since his Oklahoma days. But overall, the Cardinals were just a better team. The defense did its job for the most part with Jonathan Gannon, and they were able to make hold for the last stop. This is just kind of one of those ugly games where you got to squeak one out. But I would say the best news for the Cardinals, maybe that Kyler Marvin Harrison Jr. connection keeps developing, and Kyler, James Conner, this running game will keep getting going again, and they'll look ahead in week 2. But overall, not a game like I can, be too proud of for a lock of the week. I thought this would be a blowout, but the Saints did hang around there, and Kellen Moore's debut, was pretty solid. I mean, for the expectations, the Saints are projected to be one of the worst teams in the league. They put up a fight against a Cardinals team that the defense was top 10 end of the year. This offense is super talented with Marvin Harrison, Kyler, Trey McBride, James Conner. You're expecting them to continue to put up points, and they held them in check for the most part. So shout out the Saints keeping it close. Then with that being said, Panthers Jaguars. This game was in a delay for like an hour, so it ended around like 5 o'clock or something, 5:30, and it wasn't even raining when they called it a delay, so I didn't really like that. I did pick the Panthers in this one though, and just disappointing. I thought, the Panthers would build off of, at least the offense would build off of what they did last year, ending the year. And Bryce Young, the one good thing he did in this game was use his legs, did get a couple rushing first downs, but the turnovers were bad. 2 INTs, a fumble, and, they weren't really able to get anything going. Ted McMillan did okay for me in fantasy. I thought he made some good plays and almost came up with an insane one-hander catch in the first half. But the story of this game is Liam Cohen and these Jags are going to be feisty, and this offense is going to be competent. They're going to run the ball. Travis Etienne, what a day. People thought maybe he's on the verge of getting benched. Tank Busy come in and start most of the year. Had 100-plus yards, and they were just pounding the ball like Liam Cohen was able to do with Bucky Irving in Tampa Bay last year. And then Trevor Lawrence can just thrive on the play action. The Jaguars, it was a good performance, obviously, when you win. And Trevor Lawrence was efficient for the most part, had 1 pick, but it is what it is. And once Travis Hunter settles in, he had a lot of like a lot of catches, like 5 to 7, but not a lot of yards, like 40. Brian Thomas Jr. with only 1 catch on 7 targets. So once they get those two going, this team can take it to another level. But overall for the Panthers, once again, just can this offense get back on track and get to what it was last year? I think missing Adam Thielen actually played a role in this, just because there's one play, Bryce Young makes a great throw. Xavier Legette has to get both feet in there, and it's just unfortunate, but maybe him, Ted McMillan will continue to grow in this offense. But, in Chuba Hubbard, they just couldn't pound the ball in a lot. And, I this is a make or break year for Bryce Young in year 3. We thought he was done after last season, midway through, then came back and played great. But this is it, and not a great start. Jacksonville is going to be scrappy. Shout out, I don't want to mispronounce the name, Frank Alawanu had like 10 tackles, an INT, fumble recovery. He was all over the place. And obviously Josh Hines Allen can get after it. Sorry, by the way, allergies during this time of the year. But overall, I'm eager to see how they do next week, because this was not a great way. And like I said, Jacksonville, great team win overall. And I'm excited because, like I said, Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, there's room for improvement there. But just a good start to the season for Liam Cohen in his coaching debut. So you got to love that. Up next, Buccaneers Falcons, another NFC South rival matchup, another close game. But this time, unlike last year, the Buccaneers come out on top. And that was going to be a little bit more high scoring than it was. And it started off great for me when I said it was going to go 60 plus points, because Bijan Robinson takes a Michael Penix, like kind of screen pass dump off Bijan fancy hours. And overall, Bijan had a great game. But for the Falcons, things kind of stalled after the opening drive for a while in Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. It took them a while to get things going. But how about Emeka? I don't want to mispronounce his name. I wrote it down. Emeka Ubeka, something like that. Either way, the Ohio was always consistent at Ohio State for, I believe he was there all 4 years. It's Ibuka. Sorry. Baker Mayfield. Some of those 2 throws he made to Ibuka in the first half and then the game winner, they were just gunslinging throws, that especially in the first one, it looked like the defender could have jumped it. But that's what Baker Mayfield is, a gunslinger. Had 3 total touchdown passes on the day, and Ibuka comes down with 2 of them. The rookie out of Ohio State just kind of filling that role for Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan while they're out. But man, this Buccaneers team, Bucky Irving made some plays as well. Had a touchdown catch out of the backfield. They got into the game more as the game went on. I think, they'll be a high octane offense, very pass heavy, and then also rely on the run game with Bucky. But Atlanta, this was a pretty decent showing. Michael Penix came back, made some diving plays at the end. I think at the one point it was the game leading touchdown to put them up 2016, just diving for the pylon or over and reaching. Super athletic. Still has some accuracy things to work on. Him and Drake London weren't quite on the same page. Kyle Pitts, I thought was just putting in more effort on the catches. He was fighting harder to get those first downs. And then both defenses I thought did better, and I should have, maybe took that in my prediction. Todd Bowles, Raheem Morris, 2 of the best defensive minds in the game. Cook signing up to rattle both offenses really in the first half. It wasn't, the best game, especially for Baker. I think he started off like 0-4 signing. So it took the offenses a little bit to get into it. But by the end, it just came down to Ibuka making the great play and then a devastating way for the Falcons to go out with Younghoe Koo obviously missing the game-tying kick. But for the Falcons, I'm encouraged that Michael Penix was able to lead a drive when the pressure was on and put his team in a spot to go to overtime. Yeah, he almost, I forget who it was, right before they kicked it. He made a great throw that would have been caught at the 5-yard line, but Antoine Woodfield just making a great hit to break up the play. So, and that forced Younghoe Koo, who's typically very good, but came up short there. Couldn't, I think it was wide right, unfortunately. But I did pick Tampa, so I am happy about that. And, I just like room for Baker, but I'm encouraged with Falcons team. I think get better from here. Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Michael Penix, basically his first full year starting. It was a solid game all around. It was going to be close, just this division matchup. But the Buccaneers get their revenge from last year after losing kind of 2 heartbreakers to them. But overall, great game and just a devastating way for the Falcons to lose, because I would have loved to seen it gone to overtime, and I know fantasy owners would have too. And then next up, Steelers-Jets. I picked the Steelers to win, but not in this way at all. If you were to tell me this was going to be like pretty much the shootout of the week, besides Ravens-Bills, and probably the second best game, most entertaining just for off, I would have called you crazy. But Aaron Rodgers, revenge game. Justin Fields, revenge game. That's all it was. And both offenses were flying through the motions. Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf hit on some not even deep shots. It was just like quick RPOs that DK was just able to use his athleticism, and that's what I love about DK. Just at his size, how athletic and fast he is, he can just break through. He's kind of like Derrick Henry at the wide receiver position, just a freak athlete, and can just truck people over, run by them at like 200 plus pounds. So they're able to use him. I believe it was Calvin Austin, number 19 on the Steelers, made a couple great catches. Fryermuth as well. And, just overall, great game by the Steelers offense. Arthur Smith dialed up a game plan against this Aaron Glenn Jets defense, utilizing the play action, quick game, and they took their deep shots when they needed to. And for Justin Fields in this Jets offense, Breece Hall, talking about running backs who looked revived, Travis Etienne and Breece Hall were in that because the Jets run game was amazing. Justin Fields using his legs we needed to. Breece Hall had 100 plus yards. Braylon Allen, who I had as a backup on my bench, had a touchdown. So overall, very good game for the Steelers considering the expectations for both teams, but for both offenses. But for the Jets, considering the expectations I had for this offense, and the poor training camp, supposedly with Fields and the inaccuracy, he was very accurate today. Hit a couple deep shots to Garrett Wilson, and for me, the Steelers, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith make a sack deep in the red zone. But it was just, this is just maybe a weird week one game where the offenses are clicking and the defenses were just a step behind. But it was just interesting to see. However, for the Steelers, when you need it, this is why special teams is so important, because Chris Boswell, when he lined up, I knew he was making it. He's been one of the best kickers in the league for the long time. And when you have a guy that can hit from like 60 yards out, the offense just did enough to get them in range. And they hit it right through the uprights. It was money, could have been good from 70. And then the Jets at the end, for as bad as the Steelers defense was all day, Jalen Ramsey and that hit was incredible. Justin Fields found Garrett Wilson, looked like a secure catch, and maybe another player too. They're in field goal range, and they're the ones walking off. But overall, just a great game from two very good defensive teams that we've come to know. But it was great to see their debuts. Maybe Fields and Breece Hall in this running game. I'm excited to see if they can build off of this. Garrett Wilson get that play action pass game, and Rodgers. You're not going to get 4 touchdowns and 0 picks every week, but for the most part, just try and keep him protected. You have Jalen Warren to rely on in the running game, and then utilize those quick passes. DK Metcalf, you give him the ball, and he can go, even if it looks like he has 2 players on him, he can stiff arm both to the ground and still plus yards, and then use that slants with Fryermuth. I feel like that's going to be money all year for the Steelers. So shout out Coach Tomlin, the Steelers, getting a win on the road. I did predict the Steelers to win, so I was happy about that. But a great game, and one that was very exciting that no one anticipated. And I bet Steelers and Jets fans were happy about, especially for the Jets, because that's their best offensive game in probably years, and for the Steelers since like Big Ben in 2020 when they start off 11-0. But with that being said, we'll move now down to the next slate of games where the Bengals versus Browns. I had a weird feeling about this one. I thought it was going to be closer than people expected, and the Browns should have walked out with a dub. Bengals fans are just probably happy that they're 1-0, no matter who the opponent is, even if it was a JV football team. Just them in week one does not mix, even despite emphasis playing the stars a lot in the preseason. And the offense started off good. Chase Brown opening drive touchdown, had him in fantasy. They were utilizing him, and they had like, I think the first 3 possessions they had 2 touchdowns. So the offense was doing well early, but the Browns were just pounding the ball. Joe Flacco, that play action game was getting going. They were using Simpson, their rookie running back, to be a big part of the receiving game, and it was effective. And for the Bengals, after they got their 14 points, Joe Burrow just started facing a lot of pressure. Myles Garrett had like 3 sacks, and I think there was one drive where he literally got sacked 2 times in a row by Myles Garrett, and then another Browns player, I'm not sure who it was. So the Bengals, for me, the same problem on offense is going to be that offensive line if they can't keep Joe Burrow healthy, because Cleveland feasted there. That's the big matchup advantage they had in this game. The defense, for the most part, though, looks solid. Cleveland's not the best offense, but it did its job, was holding them even with the turnovers and stuff, or maybe just short fields that they were given. The Browns couldn't capitalize, and it was mainly, I feel bad when it comes down to kicking, but like the Steelers game, this is why it's so important to have a good kicker, because Cleveland, going with the rookie kicker, misses the extra point that would have put them up. 17-14. Yeah, but instead 16-14, and then Bengals kick the field goal, go up by 1. Browns, I think, take a short field on what was the 3-sack punt because Joe Burrow didn't throw a pick. So I don't think the Bengals actually turned the ball over, but just short fields with punts. And it was a chip shot. He was nervous, missed it, and the Bengals are walking out. And like I said, for Bengals fans, they're just happy to be 1 now. And you should be, because in these division games in Cleveland, it's still week 1. Everyone has a chance. No one's lost, no matter how bad we think the Browns are going to be. They were feisty. The offense was efficient. Joe Flacco did have, I believe 2 picks in this one. So shout out the Bengals. Some of the young guys in the secondary making plays. Trey Hendrickson got a sack, I believe, was generating some pressure. But overall, just a scrappy game that the Bengals walk out with. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, this offense is going to get back on track. But overall, yeah, I thought it was going to be a close game, but like I said, I was actually right about this one as well. Bengals win, even though that's not really much of a take because most people, I believe, had the Bengals winning. Next up, game I got completely wrong. The Miami Dolphins versus Indianapolis Colts. I was really intrigued to see this Indianapolis Colts offense with Daniel Jones. How would it look? Would he have a Sam Darnold type of year, or would he just flame out and, Shane Steichen just trying to save his job? It's a desperate move. No one really agreed with him and moving off of Anthony Richardson. And your first test is one of the most high-octane offenses in the last 3 years, with Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, all healthy. And, man, the Colts straight up put belt to ass, and it was amazing to see. Daniel Jones was phenomenal. The Colts just did everything right. Shane Steichen utilized the running game, made Daniel Jones play action. Reed wasn't open. He'd use his legs to even just get like 5 yards, really avoid Dolphins pressure for most of the day. And I believe Bradley Chubb maybe had a sack in there, but overall, using the legs, rolling out, finding play action to Tyler Warren, who had a lot of reception this one. He was a beast at Penn State. Clearly, he's going to be a beast in the NFL. He was great to see. Very slept on deep football pickup. Michael rejuvenated after being injured last year. And this Colts offense didn't punt once, scored on every drive, which is the first time since like the 70s or something had happened. And, part of that is, when the Dolphins scored like 70 points, it was just they needed out. So it's a technicality thing. But the Colts offense looked amazing in week 1. That new secondary, they got some players. My guy, as a Vikings fan, Cam Bynum getting a pick on the first play, hitting a little bit of a celly. Charvarius Ward was very solid, containing Tyreek and Waddle. Overall, this Colts team is complete. They got some guys in the secondary. Latu, year 2, had a nice pick off of Tua. Overall, for the Colts, you couldn't have asked for a better start. They looked like Super Bowl contenders in this game. But obviously, the biggest observation is, will the offense continue to build off of this? Lou Anarumo, one of the better defensive coordinators. I think a great pickup for the Colts, and he proved it. If he has some talent, he can make it work. It was just had Tua and Mike McDaniel in a blender all day. The Dolphins didn't score until like 5 minutes to go in what was basically a garbage time touchdown. So overall, Colts can't ask for a better start. I'm excited to see what they do now, if they can build off of this next week. But for the Dolphins, just a lot of questions the way last season ended. Tyreek wanting out, just the toxicity, and coming out this week, everyone's frustrated when you lose this game to a team that, was starting Daniel Jones. And for the most part, people kind of written off. I thought they'd probably win 7 to 8 games, but I thought Miami had this one. I thought this offense would be able to put up points, but not the case. 3 turnovers, looked very sluggish. So can they bounce back next week? Because if they don't, even though it's only going to be week 2, might have to press the panic button. So a game I got wrong, but honestly kind of glad, because the Colts shut me up, and they might be a team that flirts with the playoffs, could pull like what the Sam Darnold Vikings did. Great defense, offense is competent. Run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, play action pass to guys like Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren, keep cooking. So overall, great week for the Colts, arguably the best looking team in week 1 overall. With that being said, we move to my hometown team, the Patriots versus the Raiders. I took the Raiders in this one, and it was an ugly game, but that's what both teams style play: hard-nosed running football and defense. But for the Patriots, I think they passed the ball way too much in this game, and that was my first big takeaway. They just passed the ball too much. I think the Raiders also were a little bit too pass happy, and the Patriots started to catch on midway through the second quarter, when the Raiders early on were slinging it. Geno Smith was looking good. But then the third quarter, Gianti gets a rushing touchdown, and, he had some plays that he looked good on. He had a big slip up in a short third down that he could maybe cut outside and gone to the house. But, overall, this game was just sloppy. It was, rainy weather. It was downpouring where I was, so I don't know how the players throw it in that. But Brock Bowers looked amazing for the Raiders. And I think just the biggest thing in this one was the Raiders' more offensive talent. I think, Butte did great for the Patriots. But I want them to go to Travion Henderson more, even Ramondre Stevenson, just pound the ball more and utilize the play action. I think they became too pass happy in the plays I watched, and the Raiders defense was able to just, sit back. Drake May threw it a lot. And then the Raiders capitalized on a turnover when the Patriots were, I believe, up at least 10-7, or it was tied, and then they got a touchdown off the short field. And that's ultimately, I believe, what won the Raiders this game. And I'm excited. I think both teams are really well improved. This Raiders offense can be feisty. I think they'll continue to look better. Patriots are just solid defensively, even without Christian Gonzalez. But I think both teams just got to work on, patching up the run game, continue. Travion Henderson looked so explosive all the training camp and did have a couple nice plays in the touches he had. But just, keep pounding the ball, and then Drake May can be best utilized off the play action. And same with the Raiders. I want Gianti to continue to get more touches as it goes along, especially in this type of weather. I thought it'd be a lot more running than what it was. Both quarterbacks threw for 30-plus passes, I believe, which isn't really ideal. When just these styles Pete Carroll and Mike Vrabel like to play. But overall, solid one for the Raiders defense. With Mad Max looked good. And couldn't really ask for a better start going on the road against a much improved Patriots team. But the Raiders also much improved themselves. I just trusted their offense more, and that's why I picked them. And that's ultimately what proven to make me right. So shout out the Raiders. Next up, an NFC East showdown between the Giants and preview before. I thought the biggest thing that could keep the Giants in this was their pass rush, and it did. Brian Burns had a couple sacks, was getting after it, and Thibodeau made a couple plays, and life was just kind of uncomfortable for Jay Daniels, and everything just seemed a little bit off rhythm, especially with Scary Terry, missing most of training camp. I think they were just kind of a step behind the 8 ball, but they did enough to get done. Zach Ertz made a nice couple plays, had that touchdown, so him and Jay Daniels continued their connection, and the Commanders were able to run the ball late to help put this game away. And Jane still used his legs when he needed to get first downs. It just kind of helped this team win. Deebo Samuel also making a couple plays in this game. So I think the Commanders, you just kind of take this and move on. You have a short week against the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football. So they did enough to win this game, but I think as they continue to build, they'll just kind of get better as the season goes along. And even though Jane Daniels was my MVP pick, I did anticipate a little bit of a slow start just with the Giants. Their front seven is scrappy. They could keep up. And the Commanders just were separate two behind some of those big plays. And like I said, especially with Scary, but they'll get their momentum back from last season. And then for the Giants, defense, can't really ask for much more. They did a good job containing Jane Daniels, just getting pressure, making him comfortable, making the pass a little bit off rhythm. But man, this offense, they're already questioning whether Jackson Dart will start next week. And, I'm a big Jackson Dart guy. And this was just an ugly game for Russell Wilson. He couldn't really do much. They tried targeting Malik Neighbors a lot, kind of the only person on the Giants that could do something still, though. I think like 5 catches, 12 targets last time I checked when they were playing. It was a rough game. Russell Wilson, pressured a lot. And this Giants offensive line is not good. And that was kind of the biggest thing. The Commanders were able to bully them up and just make Russell Wilson uncomfortable, not be able to pass. It's just kind of sad to see this just leaving Seattle and the disaster. Bounce back a little bit with Pittsburgh, but not a great week one. And Brian Dable already, unsure after the game, answering who's starting, just kind of with a 3-quarterback carousel with him, Winston, and Dart. It's going to be a long season. And then when the run game can't build, because this offensive line isn't really doing much and can, push the ball forward, it's going to be rough. Giants, though, last 3 seasons, they can't score a touchdown in the opening game. So Brian Dable, he's going to be desperate to pull all the plugs he can to save his job. So I'll be curious if change happens and just how does his offense look next week? Can they bounce back at all? That'll be a big test. The Commanders in this one, pretty much a lock, just given the way the Giants offense is. But shout out that defense, because that defense can be scrappy and keep them in some games. And if Russell Wilson, Kyron Tracy, Malik Neighbors, continue to improve and, get better from what was this week one, then I could definitely see a couple wins, going for them in upsets. Next up, the Tennessee Titans versus the Denver Broncos. And if I'm a Broncos fan, and I know Broncos fans, they're not happy with this, nor she should be. It was sloppy. Bo Nix looked a little bit off. Looked like more the beginning here. Bo Nix just making some questionable reads. Marvin Mims fumbling the punt. But the Broncos the best defense. Short fields. Everything was handed to the Titans, and they really couldn't do much outside like that opening drive where they really moved the ball pretty well. Cam Ward, I feel bad. He did put a lot of zip on the ball, but his receivers were dropping it, and that O line just could not hold up, and they're undisciplined. They're an undisciplined team, and that's why I kind of question Brian Callahan as a coach. He really didn't show me much last year, and despite the improvements they try to make, getting guys like Kevin Zeitler in, I mean, the offensive line got bullied, though it's against Denver Broncos, which is one of the best defenses in football. So you got to give them a pass here. But it kind of had over it where the Titans offense wouldn't be able to move the ball. So I can't really judge too much despite all the gifts from the Broncos, self-made errors. But for the Broncos, they got the one thing good was they got the run game going with J.K. Dobbins, who got the touchdown to kind of pull it away. But overall, still score game. And you have 4 turnovers. I think there's a lot to clean up for the Broncos, and Sean Payne will make sure. But yeah, Denver's defense is as advertised. This offense has got a lot to clean up. But if you're a Titans fan, your defense, Jeffrey Simmons, they were getting after it. Bo Nix, super uncomfortable, just tricking him in reads. So Titans, if this offense can just continue to get better each week and this defense plays at all like they did this week, maybe they're not, a top 5 pick again team like we think. Man, they against the Broncos that improved that offense, and we're already, a off team last year, a sleeper to win the AFC West in their own building. Week 1, everyone's jacked up, put up a fight, and really, made some Broncos fans, question like, do we got to make more improvements already? Because man, that was an ugly win. But I'll be interesting to see how both these offenses bounce back. But for Denver's defense, I know what it will be. Surtain, Zach Allen up front. These guys make plays. Hufanga in the secondary was a great addition already. So shout out Denver's defense because they deserve this win. Kind of reminds me of the Bears-Titans game, coincidentally enough, last year where the Bears defense did it all to will them to that win. And then next up, by the way, I did get that right. And then next up was another division game. They really blessed with these week 1 games because division games just something about make it more fun. The 49ers headed to Seattle, and I picked the Seahawks, and I'm kind of a little bit disappointed with Seahawks. It was a devastating loss the way it ended with that Darnold getting, I believe it was Abe Lucas getting pushed into Darnold's arm. And, Nick Bosa just made a great play there, forcing him in, forced Darnold to lose the ball when they were at like the San Fran 9-yard line. But Seattle, the offense just looked so sluggish. They got that early touchdown, and then Darnold, they didn't really, trust Darnold to throw the ball. He only threw 23 passes, and Clint Kubiak, I know, likes that outside zone scheme and then play action off of that. But they ran the ball a lot. They had some effective runs, but, just overall, they couldn't connect on some of the deep plays. Pretty much the only guy on Seattle that Darnold trusted was Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had like a 100-yard plus game. But after that, Darnold only threw for like 150 yards. There was not much weapons after that. Cooper Kupp did not get going. I don't even know if he had a catch in this game, or if he did, it was like one catch. So San Fran, for me, this defense with Robert Saleh looks back. They really flustered Seahawks offense that had a lot of high expectations. And then for the offense, Brock Purdy, they made that great throw at the end. Or kind of lucky throw, just a missed time from Tariq Woolen. But that tight end on the 49ers, I'm not sure, filled in for George Kittle, made like 3 catches on that drive. Apologies not for getting his name, but 49ers fans who are watching, you know who I'm talking about, made that great catch at the end of the game and made some just big plays at the end. And then Ricky Pearsall having a 100-yard plus game, with guys like Brandon Ayuk still out. They traded away Deebo Samuel. It was time for him to step up. He did that. McCaffrey got a good load. George Kittle went out early. Not sure how serious that injury is, but obviously need him back. And the 49ers, for the most part, dominated this game. People kind of will overlook just the 2 field goals, one that was blocked, one that was missed. The 49ers were one of the worst special teams last year, which costed them some close games. It almost cost them this one. So I don't know if Jake Moody's the guy or if they have to turn someone else. Obviously the blocked one is on him, but he's got to make his kicks, and that's why special teams is so important, even no matter how good you are on offense or defense. And then Brock Purdy also just took some forced chances, even on that last drive to Ricky Pierce on the deep one. Tariq Woolen just mistimed it. 2 of those, the touchdown and that deep bomb. So, 49ers, Brock Purdy, I hope, to see some more improvement, continue to rely on McCaffrey. Obviously, though, not having those weapons out there hurt George Kittle especially. But, they came up with plays like they need to, and they didn't do that last year. So San Fran was a close one. Shout out Nick Bosa at the play at the end. For Seattle, just a devastating loss. I mean, you thought you were going to get a game-winning drive, but this offense needs to get better. I mean, the defense, Mike McDonald, was as advertised. Very solid. Made Brock Purdy some mistakes, just made them comfortable, and then made them work for every yard, which is, Kyle Shanahan offenses typically just have an easy time scoring. But Mike McDonald, the Seahawks defense, but 49ers got it when it mattered most. But I'll be interested to see how much Darnold throws next week. Can he in this offense bounce back, and can he get some of the other guys going? Then next up, this game of the week, an NFC North rival that I was really had my eyes locked into as a Vikings fan, just because, two of the favorites to come out of the NFC, two of the favorites to win the NFC North, the 15-win Lions from last year, and the Packers team that won 11 games and then traded for Micah Parsons and drafted Matthew Golden in Green Bay. Couldn't ask for a better start for the Packers. That's all I'll say. Micah Parsons, you could just feel his presence there. He didn't play a lot, only like 45% of snaps, but got a couple pressures, chased down Jared Goff on that sack at the end of the game. And the pressures he did get, one forced Jared Goff into a mistake, and the other was like on the first drive that forced the Lions to punt because Jared Goff had to check down. Overall, I think for the Lions, I'm curious, can this interior improve? Because I think people overlooked losing Kevin Zeitler and Frank Ragnow that were top 10 PFF players at their position. And they were clearly missed because the Packers were just running stunts and getting pressure on the interior that Jared Goff was simply not facing last year. And that made this offense uncomfortable. That's so built on these rhythm routes with Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams, and they could not get anything going. And then for the Packers offense, Jordan Love early on looked really sharp, just finding different guys like Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs on big plays. Matthew Golden had a couple catches, and Josh Jacobs, wasn't, getting effective runs early, but just still pounding, eventually wearing him down. He was able to get loose, get a touchdown later on in the game. And Matt LaFleur, you can't ask for a better game when you're up 27-6. And then it was a great catch, by the way, by Tesla on the Lions for a garbage time touchdown. But, this Packers team is legit, and I'm scared. I think they're going to, win the NFC North, even as a Vikings fan, really not afraid to admit it. I think they're the most complete team, top 10 offense, top 10 defense last year, that just lost a lot of close games to, better teams than the Lions and Vikings. But that addition of Micah Parsons, Matthew Golden provide an extra spark to this team, and just a motivated, healthy Jordan Love to start the season. Man, it's going to be scary. And for the Lions, I think it'll get better as the season goes on. You're not going to put up basically 6 points, no touchdowns. You're not going to do that every game. Jared Goff is too good. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, they're going to get going. But they also, we're not getting in the run game, no matter how electric they can be, because that interior was just collapsing. Green Bay was just ganging up on them. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs had 9 carries, 19 yards. You're not going to win when your offensive line is getting bullied like that in the trenches, which the Lions are not used to doing. Even in games they lost, they would put up a lot of points on the Commanders or Bills last year in close games. But yeah, not great. And then obviously Aiden Hutchinson still has to work his way back because they really could not get any pressure on Jordan Love. The defense did look a little bit better in the second half. Brian Branch had what looked like a pick six, but just the holding call. Part of the Lions physically going to get some calls like that. So overall, just kind of nothing really went right. I think the Lions, with this really tough schedule, I'm excited to see how they bounce back in next week's game. And, I did pick the Packers in this one. I didn't think it'd be this much of a blowout as it was, but shout out Green Bay. They sent a statement. I know Dan Campbell and his guys, they must have a response, because if you start 0-2, panic can start to set in just because of the analytics. When teams start 0-2, they theoretically don't make the playoffs. Next up, Rams-Texans, the final game of the afternoon slate. Kind of like how I expected. I was slamming the under on this. I even said go under 38, even though it was at 44.5. The problems the Texans had on the offensive line were the problems, not giving CJ Stroud enough time. And CJ Stroud, outside Nico Collins, just didn't really have enough help in this one. The one pick he threw wasn't really even his fault. It was a nice ball that the Rams just wrestled away. But for the Texans, their defense kept in this one. Will Anderson, Neil Hunter getting after it. Matthew still working his way back. Outside of Nakua, this offense was a little sluggish. Kyron Williams had a rushing touchdown. And Devontae Adams made a couple of nice plays, but it's going to take a while when you miss all training camp to get on the same page with your guys. Texans is all met around with D'Amico Ryans. We got 23 total points. But the biggest difference and why I picked the Rams was they had a little bit more offensive talent, and that came true. Nakua with 130 yards, Matthew Stafford, Kyle Williams, Devontae Adams, just more playmakers. Because despite how good C.J. Stroud is and how I think he can be, this offensive line is atrocious, and it was really bad last year. Way Laremy Tunsil, who's your only good player on the offensive line. So the Texans, I'm just disappointed, and this kind of reminiscent of what I think they be. I think they're going to win 9-10 games just because of their defense, and the offensive talent will do good when they're not facing, a top 5 defense like the Rams with Jared versus Byron Young, who can just get after it. Look, it won't look this bad, but, for Texans, very frustrating game. And, I think the Rams, they'll take it, just a little rusty, given Matthew Stafford didn't really practice all training camp. And, what is what it is. Rams will take it. Texans, you got to be proud of this defense, but the offense just leaves, you wanting to pull hair out of your hair out because it was that bad. But with that being said, overall, an okay week for me picking wise. The AI actually beat me in our AI algorithm, so we'll recap that in another episode. But then that leaves one more game where my Minnesota Vikings head to Chicago, and got to be excited for this. It's my favorite team, so you're always excited when your favorite team plays. Have to wait until Monday night, unfortunately, but Soldier Field is going to be rowdy with Bears fans. I know some Vikings fans will try and pack it, but it should be a good one. JJ McCarthy's anticipated debut, Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson, game 1, another anticipated, debut for the head coach, and Caleb Williams just looking to improve off his sophomore year. Both of these teams did a lot building up in the trenches. The Bears on the offensive line, Vikings also on the offensive line and defensive line. So I'm excited to see how those additions do. And then also, I think one of the biggest question marks is Jalen Johnson, his health. How will he look if he suits up? I think he will, just because I think you got to try and have to, because after him, guarding Justin Jefferson will be a nightmare. But for them, thankfully, no Jordan Addison. So, can Adam Thielen, what will he do since getting traded? TJ Hawkinson, how will they look? And then for the Bears, Rome Odunze entering year 2, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift out of the backfield. Can they establish a running game against this Brian Flores defense? There'll be a lot to look forward to. And, as a Vikings fan, I'll make sure to recap it all tomorrow. But with that being said, once again, as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. And let me know if your favorite football team won. And, your main takeaways from week 1. Who caught your eye? Most surprising, most disappointing, whatever it is. But as always, thank you for watching. Peace.